Hello and welcome. My name is Justin Peterson from the Average Joe's Movie Clubcast. This is the first episode of my new spin-off podcast, I've Always Wanted to Watch That, where I like to connect with different kinds of people who like to watch movies and kind of take the plunge with them on this movie and figure out, why they had never watched it before and was it good finally checking it out. So on our first episode, we're checking out the martial arts extravaganza Ong-Bak, Muay Thai Warrior from 2003. My first guest is my longtime Letterboxd pal, Marvin. I first started chatting with him when he would leave these very detailed thoughts about some of my movie reviews in the comments section. This eventually evolved into us starting a movie club where we would recommend each other movies back and forth. Seems like we started just yesterday, but now we're all the way up to 17, so man, we've been going for quite a while. So without any further delay, welcome to the show, Marvin. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself and your love of movies?
Hello. Thanks, Justin, for having me on. It's an honor. I've been a fan of cinema since I was a kid. I think obviously my first cinema experience was obviously the first Harry Potter film that I saw in 2001, and then from then forth I've just been in love with cinema really. And I think I found Letterboxd around, I think it was around 2017, and I think my earliest reviews I did for it was like The Shining and Eye in the Sky. And then I think we obviously found each other from, I think it was my review of Coco. And I just love movies in general really, and the type of movies I'm into is like any genre really. Nowadays I'm getting out of my comfort zone to like certain movies I wouldn't really watch, like Japanese anime films. So I've been watching stuff like When Marnie Was There or Spirited Away. I'm not the type of movies I would go out and watch, but I'm trying to get into like different types of genres and movies, not just your every typical Hollywood movie that you'd normally watch. So yeah, I'll talk about some of the movies that I love. Like one of my favorite movies is like Eye in the Sky, Pulp Fiction,
Mm-hmm.
Webcam for a Dream, Coco, Blade Runner 2049, The Shining, just stuff like that really. So if you
What's
want
Eye
to,
in the What's Eye in the Sky? I've never heard of that one.
it's from the same director, Gavin Hood, who did Tetsurosi, the movie I told you to watch. Remember?
Yeah.
The foreign language one, yeah, Eye in the Sky, which came out, I think it was 2016. It's a fantastic film,
Okay.
criminally underrated. Um, I highly recommend. That was obviously sad because it was one of Alan Rickman's last movies.
Oh, okay.
Um, I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. Not many people talk about it, and it's also, if you've seen Breaking Bad, it's got
Mm-hmm.
is it Aaron Paul from Break? I think he's in it,
Yeah.
and yeah. So yeah,
Oh,
Eye in the Sky is a brilliant movie. If no one's actually seen it, it's a great film.
yeah.
Definitely missed the Oscars when it came out, so it's a
Gotcha.
shame.
So, I guess you're from the UK, right?
Yeah, I'm from the UK. Yeah,
Whereabouts?
England, East Sussex.
Okay. Very
Yeah, not
cool.
exactly very interesting where I'm from, really. It's raining at the moment. Typical UK weather.
Oh, okay. Have you done much travel out around Europe or made to the States at all?
I've been on a holiday with my family and all that, but I've been on holiday for a while now, and I'm hoping to go soon. Obviously when the pandemic sorted itself out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that you're real into boxing. Want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've started. Well, obviously, I've been training for just doing normal pad work, but then obviously when I found out there's a charity event going on, um, I thought I'll you know sign up for that and just train for a boxing match, and this will be my first ever fight. I think it's 16-ounce gloves and headgear. Obviously now I'm in a bit of isolation, which I'll be out on Saturday. Thank God I can continue um, weeks of training. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going really well. So people might be worried about being in isolation, but I know I'll be able to kick it back up with the training in days or even a week. So, and it's going really well. So just have to see what the result is on the actual fight day.
Nervous about this? You said it was the first time you'll be in a uh, competitive fight.
Yeah. I don't know where I'll be in that moment until I'm in the ring. So,
Sure,
and I
sure.
don't know. So win, lose or draw, it'd just be great to do something that always wanted to do.
Okay.
So it'd just be great, really.
Awesome. So tell me about like maybe your top four movies. I remember we were talking back and forth about Batman '89 being and you being a big Tim Burton fan. So tell me a little bit about that.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of Tim Burton. I've always wanted. Was never a fan of Batman as a child. I was more into Spider-Man and the Hulk and X-Men. So I've always wanted to try and get into the character of Batman, and I just found it hard because at the time I only seen two live-action Batman films, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, which obviously wasn't the best introduction to the character. So
Yeah, tragically not.
So there was some anime stuff here and there, but it just I never really got into those stuff as a kid. But probably nowadays I'll probably be more open to watching them. So someone suggested, why don't you check out Batman Begins? And obviously I wasn't really into movies when I was in school, really. Obviously I'll go to cinema, but I wasn't really into them as much as I am now.
Sure.
And back then with Batman Begins, I didn't like it. I hadn't seen it since I was in school. I couldn't get into Batman Begins. The Dark Knight, obviously, the only thing I liked was Heath Ledger's Joker, may he rest in peace. I watched the first 30 minutes of Dark Knight Rises. I just couldn't finish it. I just thought these movies are not for me. But nowadays, I'm willing to watch them again with open eyes.
Okay.
So then someone suggested, why don't you try Batman 1989? And I didn't know who directed the film. And when I saw it was Tim Burton, I was like, I only seen two Tim Burton films at that time, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and a Corpse Bride.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I'll check this movie out. I probably won't like it. It won't be for me. And as soon as I started it, as soon as it finished, I loved it. I became like, this is the Batman film made for me. I was just surprised how engaged I was with the story and the characters and just Batman in general. I think it was mainly just how great the cast is. I know people nowadays do criticize Batman '89 not for not being too much like the comics, or there's some stuff changed with maybe the Bruce Wayne character and how Batman acts, or the Joker being too much in the film. Like Jack Nicholson's obviously, people say he's being too much like Jack Nicholson, but it is what it is.
Okay.
But I love the film. I think it's mainly just mainly Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne and Batman, who is my favorite character of Bruce Wayne and Batman, and Jack Nicholson is my favorite Joker. And I think Michelle Pfeiffer's in it as well, and I love her.
Well, she's in the sequel, Batman Returns.
No, not Michelle Pfeiffer. Sorry, it's what's her name? It's Kim Basinger. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, Michelle Pfeiffer. But no, she's also great as well. She's my favorite Catwoman portrayal, which I know people would say, really? I know. But yeah, I just love the cast.
Anne Hathaway, she's not pretty nice to look at, but I think Michelle Pfeiffer's performance there in Batman Returns definitely cranks the character up a notch.
Yeah, I'm not big on Anne Hathaway. I mean, I can't think of any movies that she's really stuck out to me. Most people just say Dark Knight Rises, but I only watched the first 30 minutes, so I just don't remember much about her in that film.
So, with Nolan's trilogy, what kind of turned you off about it? Just the tone?
I think at the time I just found it. I think what I remember about Batman Begins specifically and Dark Knight, the first half I enjoyed of Batman Begins, and the second half I think gets boring. The Dark Knight, all I remember is just Heath Ledger's Joker. It's been a while since I watched the first three movies, and I've never really been a big Nolan fan anyway. I've seen all of his movies. Well, the first 30 minutes of Interstellar, I had to turn it off because I was like, I'm not watching 30 minutes of this.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
I don't dislike Nolan. He's just not my favorite director. I think my favorite film of his is Insomnia. Great performance by Robin Williams, may he rest in peace, and the great Al Pacino's in it.
Yep.
I didn't mind Tenet. I know a lot of people found that quite controversial. It was a not easy movie to sit through. I wasn't big on Dunkirk, but the trilogy as itself, the Nolan Batman trilogy, I just can't get into them. But maybe now with open eyes, I'll probably change my mind on them. But it's mainly. I was never a big fan on Christian Bale until I saw American Psycho, which is one of my favorite movies.
Okay.
I don't know. I just don't think. I know Bale had trouble with the films. I think he found it incredibly hard. with those movies, what I heard in rumors. I'm trying to think what else. It's just, I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen them, so it's hard to say why. Maybe they're slightly overrated. I just don't see the big hype for them, really. What about you?
I really enjoy pretty much all the Batman films. For me, I thought The Dark Knight really kind of took it up a notch. I mean, having that really like pounding beginning of the movie, it has a kind of that feel of heat going on, and kind of sticking this comic book story in more of a realistic setting. Really blew me away. I think the movie's a little too long. Kind of towards the end of it, it starts kind of losing its way, but I think it still it still hits the landing. For the most part, when it comes to comic book movies, like, I'm all about the action. Like, I really grew up on like comic book cartoons where, each episode, they get into the action pretty quick. I mean, there's some character development there, but it's not like this, long story or whatever, where I'm finding more and more that people complain about those kind of comic book stories on the big screen because there's not enough character development, or the bad guy doesn't have good motives. He's just there to be evil, and that was my bread and butter growing up. So I've never really had an issue with it. I mean, yeah, it's a little more interesting whenever you get a complex villain, but an uncomplex villain, I mean, that's just someone for them to punch, and that doesn't it doesn't grow old for me for the most part. But yeah. And 89 Batman, I had the VHS of it when I was a kid, and watched it quite a bit. Saw Batman Returns in the theater. And watched 89 Batman quite a bit. I think that was probably my first superhero movie. Watched that long before I even checked out Christopher Reeves and Superman. So always enjoyed Batman 89. It has its kind of silly moments in there, but for the most part, I mean, Gotham's done awesome, and that theme song is by far just iconic from Elfman.
Yeah, I think it's hard to. I know it's not fair to compare, but I think the biggest problems of the Nolan films, there's more. Well, pretty much every Nolan film, it's more. It's just exposition and exposition for me. It's just there's always explaining and just slow dialogues. It's just like they can't be characters. Like there's always something. Nolan has to spoon feed us this dialogue, and it's just. I think that's why the movies are so stretched out, because there's so much. He overthinks, especially when I watched Interstellar for the first 30 minutes. I'm like, I can't watch this for 3 hours. But
really surprised. Okay, go ahead.
So, what was you saying?
Well, one thing that frustrated me is I enjoyed Inception, although whenever I go back and watch it, like I can kind of see how he's kind of formulaic in the way he's trying to kind of confuse you and how he's doing things, but actually not a whole lot's going on, mostly in the beginning section there. But otherwise, it's a super creative movie. But I liked how that ended on that ambiguous note with the top or whatever. And then we get over to The Dark Knight Rises, and I guess you haven't, seen, you might not be aware of the scene I'm talking about, but it ends on a very like obvious note. It's like they teed it up throughout like the whole movie, and then you finally get to the last shot and you're just like, well, I didn't really need to see that. You could have made it a little bit more subtler, and just like you did with Inception. But I guess he felt the need to make sure the comic book fans got exactly what they wanted to see, instead of
I think I know what you're talking about, but I think I know. Are you talking about the ending, or are you talking about some near the final action?
So in my opinion, the movie should have ended wherever Alfred nods his head. Instead of actually cutting over to Bale.
Film, so it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, actually cutting over to Batman and Catwoman there in Italy or whatever. I mean, it's set up so nicely throughout to where, like, like whenever Alfred nods his head, that's probably who he's nodding his head to. And if it would just ended there, it would have been so much more, I think, satisfying. But anywho, so any other thoughts on Batman 89 before we move on?
It's just not just the cast, but I feel like obviously the soundtrack by Danny Elfman is iconic. Like that opening was just brilliant. And that's what got me in the mood of the film. And I actually thought the origin, when I first saw it, I thought that was going to be the origin. I thought that was Bruce Wayne when you first see him with the robber and all that, and then it wasn't, because you saw Batman on the roof after that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and then you obviously see the origin near the end of the film.
It's kind of strange how what Joker ends up being the guy who killed his parents in that original one.
That
So
was Tim Burton's idea as well.
okay,
Uh, and I know at the time people weren't happy with that, but I feel like they needed to get a conflict between the Batman and the Joker. Really, that's
yep,
why
definitely amps
that
that
probably
up.
happened. But
Hmm.
I can't think of any other Batman movie that's done that. I thought that was brilliant, and they actually got like a younger actor to look like Jack Nicholson as well in the flashback. So I thought that
Right.
was really really cool,
Yep,
and
good casting
the
there.
way it was shot, and the way the music, and just that whole was just breathtaking. And seeing Bruce Wayne's reaction to it all with the flashbacks, it was just brilliant. And I know people were angry when Alfred brought um what's the name? It's what's Kim Basinger's character's name again? I forgot. Sorry. It was
Is it something Kyle?
Selena Kyle. Yeah, Selena Kyle.
Okay.
Yeah, and fans were angry that they allowed Alfred to bring someone into the Batcave without Batman's permission. And I'm like, I don't know. There's so many things in comic book movies nowadays that have changed. I mean, we just have to deal with it, really.
Yeah, and I mean, she had a good enough relationship with Bruce at that point to where it didn't really bother him. So,
No.
iconic looking Batmobile. I had that toy growing up, so quite enjoyed playing with that. And then I got kind of mad when they destroyed it in part two, but that's a whole nother
Oh, and
thing.
Returns, yeah, yeah. I love Batman Returns. It's what happens when you give a director full creative control, and that's
Mm-hmm.
it. It's like when Joe Dante was given full creative control in Gremlins 2. He's just like, what
Uh,
the hell is he? It's like crazy.
oh yeah, he definitely goes off the wall there. I guess my bit. I don't like how the Joker has that real long gun and he's able to somehow shoot down the Batjet with it. But I mean, it
But
is
he's
what
a
it
clown, I
is.
suppose. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what makes for me. He's my favorite Joker, and my second is Joaquin Phoenix in the solo movie Joker, which I
Okay.
also love. Um, I love Heath Ledger, but I just feel like I'm more scared by Jack Nicholson's Joker. People say he's not that threatening or that psychotic, and for me he is. Like, I mean, there's so many scenes where I can point out what he does is so psychotic. I mean, there is even a line like, "I'll make art until someone dies," or
Mm-hmm.
he scars his girlfriend's face off with hot whether it was poison, whether it was, and
Mm-hmm.
he forces her to commit suicide out of a window, and he laughs about it. You can't make an omelet without cracking some eggs or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just and even when he dies, he's still laughing, but it's a laugh box, and
Yep.
it's just Jack Nicholson put the whole. Heath Ledger was great as well, but it's just Jack Nicholson made a. I felt like Jack Nicholson was more comic book
Mm-hmm.
feel than I think Heath Ledger was more a creation of Nolan. It was more of a creation by Nolan,
Okay.
really.
Gotcha. Interesting thought on that one. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed Jack Nicholson's performance there. I mean, despite him being this huge personality, he still manages to get lost in the character, which definitely appreciate there. Any other top three movies you want to call out before we move on?
Yeah. Webcam for a Dream.
Okay. Aronofsky.
Obviously, that's not the most happiest movie to sit through by any. Um, that was definitely one of the biggest like gut wrenching movies I've ever seen in my life. I know it's probably weird to say it's one of my favorite movies of all time, but it just shows just don't take drugs. It really does mess up your mind.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, it's just the movie. It's obviously my favorite Aronofsky's film. I've
Okay.
seen his other work. I saw Mother in the cinema, and I haven't seen it since it came out in the cinema. And I know
Same here.
it was pretty much love or hate, but um, there's also what else did he do? He did Black Swan, which I thought was great.
Yep.
Um,
Me too.
what else did he do? He did
You've seen The Wrestler yet?
I saw it once, but I can't remember much about it. But I think those are the
Same
only
here.
movies I've seen. But Webcam for a Dream is just like I love kind of split stories
Hmm.
like in Pulp Fiction. There's another movie you recommended to me. It was from the director of The Revenant. Can't remember what it's called. It was kind of similar to that.
Oh
It,
right. Oh, I'm
it
blanking.
was it was it's with some the dog, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Look
but
it
no,
up.
I love split stories like that. Um, and he's got a great cast. You know, you got Jared Leto, who's one of my favorite actors. You know, you have Jennifer Connelly.
Mm-hmm.
You have Marlon Wayans, which annoyed me because he should be carrying on with this career. I don't know why he didn't take this road to drama. He had to go and do, I don't know, two scary movies and other spoofs.
Yeah.
The actress's name, I can't remember. I think it was Ellen something, who obviously had the strongest story in the entire movie. And it's just the movies, you know, it's just the direction, that soundtrack definitely fits for 2020 and 2021. That
Mm-hmm.
iconic
Yeah.
soundtrack.
Yeah. Great
It
music in
just
that movie.
it scars you for life. You know, just the way it's shot, especially that third climax of the
Mm-hmm.
editing, where you see what's happened to those four characters. Um, it's just insane, really, and it's just devastating to see what happens to them near the end, unfortunately. But it's just one of those things. I don't recommend doing drugs or um, pills. It's definitely one of his best movies in my opinion, and it's not too long, it's not too short. Obviously, it's really hard to sit through, but I feel like it's a movie everyone needs to see.
Yeah.
Like, just it's definitely something that I think it's a film that we need in our lives in a way.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah,
about
I
you? What do you
do.
think of the
I
film?
definitely like those emotional impact stories. Yeah, films don't necessarily have to, be all fun and stuff. As long as it's having an emotional impact, so it's a lot of times that's what I'm looking for. What was your question?
What did you think of the film Requiem for a Dream?
It's been a while since I've seen it, but
I
yeah,
don't blame you.
definitely enjoyed it. Yeah, I watched that kind of towards the start of my Letterboxd watching, and well, when I was on Letterboxd watching movies and reviewing them. So yeah, it'd be interesting to go back and read what I put there. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I was first introduced to it on like a trip, I was part of a drum corps, and they had that on the bus, and definitely not the kind of movie you want to be watching on a bus with a bunch of
Right.
people being like, "What on earth are we watching?" But yeah, later watched it and knew its reputation for being intense, and definitely lived up to that. Especially with seeing what the actress from I think The Exorcist is in it, and I think she got nominated for an award for her portrayal of desperation and then going into drug abuse. So
Mm.
yeah, definitely enjoyed as well. And then that Inarritu movie we were looking for was Amiros Peros, is that dogfighting split story
Yeah, that's it.
movie.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I love movies like that when they split characters from different sections and just different timings as well. Um, I don't know. I just love stories like that. Really, I know it's been done to death, but it's just the way it's done. You know, especially in Quentin Tarantino films that do it so
Hmm.
well, like in Pulp Fiction or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right. All right. Well, without any further ado, let's get into our main feature here, the movie that we both had, I guess, been meaning to see for the longest time, just never got around to it. Ong-Bak. Now, how did you hear about this movie, and why'd you put it off so long?
My personal trainer actually told me about this film because he also recommended the other films. I think it was called Ip Man with what was it Donnie he was in Rogue One and obviously in the Ip Man series. Is it
Let me look it
wh-
up.
but I love martial arts films.
Donnie Yen.
Yeah, Donnie Yen. I love martial arts films in general. Like The Raid and The Raid 2 are my favorites,
Okay.
and also Ip Man from 1 to 4, and also the spin-off film as well. And I thought I'll check this one out. Looks decent enough, and I watched it last night. It's a pretty damn great film.
Yeah,
I was more
agreed.
impressed with the action scenes and the way it's choreographed, especially this chase sequence in town. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not just like your typical martial arts fights. It's actually our main character going through the busy streets and just the way he's jumping over stuff and like this director, he's showing the choreographed action scenes in
Mm-hmm.
twice in different angles
Yep.
to make it look
Making
like
the
it's
most of it.
actually there, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of cool.
I've noticed
I
that
thought
in
the
some. I think the big stunt at the end of Police Story with Jackie Chan. I think they play it like 3 or 4 times just because like you got it you got it on camera from all these angles. Might as well show it, and they definitely take advantage of that here too. And you'd think that would kind of make the story feel a little disjointed, but I
Mhm.
mean, it's just so cool to see those things. It's like, yeah, I'll watch it again. Heck yeah.
Obviously, I think his name is Tony Jaa. Massive respect to him. This must have been really difficult to
Hmm.
perform all these stunts. Just like with Jackie Chan as well, they just risk their lives with these movies.
Yep.
Obviously, Hollywood nowadays would just CGI this stuff, which is unfortunate. But I think it's not. It doesn't a movie. It's not a movie that takes itself overly serious as well. There's a lot of humor during the action scenes as well, especially.
Hmm.
He's trying to get his money back from the counter, and they think he wants to fight, but he doesn't. And obviously, someone
Hmm.
uh, runs towards him, and he just does this famous back kick spin to the
Hmm.
head, and it was just it knocked him out just like that. And I thought it was humorous.
Now, the first time I came across this movie, I was in kind of like a social area. I was still in college, studying abroad, and they had this movie on, and I looked, and someone was going on and on about how, oh, this is such cool martial arts. I mean, it's all about like bashing people with your elbows and your knees and stuff. And I sat down and watched a scene or so, and I was just like, yeah, this is really cool. And then kind of thought nothing of it and went on what I was doing, and never thought to watch it again. Shame on me. So yeah, I was real excited whenever you recommended we check this one out, and I popped it on and highly enjoyed it. So the synopsis via our courtesy of IMDb is when the head of a statue sacred to a village is stolen, a young martial artist goes to the big city and finds himself taking on the underworld to retrieve it. And I think he goes to Bangkok, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
In
he's trying to get like
Thailand.
a Buddha head back.
Yep. And man, you know that you're in for a crazy ride with this, with that opening scene where you have all these guys that are like painted in mud, and they're doing some kind of climbing a tree contest where they have to
Yeah,
go up to the
it's like
top of
capture the
it.
flag or something.
It's some pretty wild stunts as these guys are literally flying out of the tree. I guess you can kind of tell that they had some pads underneath the dirt,
Mm.
underneath the tree, but still a really fun way to kind of open things up and introduce you to the zaniness of this movie.
Yeah, it's really crazy. It's just I'm surprised not many people talk about this film. I don't know if it did well or not, but Roger Ebert gave it a thumbs up, so it must have done some good. And I didn't realize it had sequels as well. I'm like, oh wow, I thought this would be just a one-off film.
Yeah, a whole series of them. I suppose the language barrier does get in some folks' way because a lot of action fans aren't into subtitles. It's something
No,
a lot of Americans kind of have to get over. But once you do,
it's been
yeah,
going
it's
around for
nothing to
ages
it.
since Seven Samurai.
Okay.
So yeah, and I feel like not just the action scenes, it's just the way it's directed. It's just how crazy, how far they're willing to go with the action scenes. Like you said, he has a special move with his elbow. It's like a John Woo film, in a way.
Okay. All right, so yeah, it doesn't take long to get into the plot at all. It doesn't spend like an extra amount of time like setting things up. We find out that the sacred Buddha head gets stolen, and so Tony Jaa, who plays Tang, is off to the big city to go get it. As I was watching this, like I had mentioned, I watched some Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee, and as impressive as those are, like the whole Mayu Tai style of like how it's his like whole body is so physical form of fighting that it's so impressive to watch. Super memorable villain, the guy with the trach, and he's just this total asshole, and he's this compulsive gambler, and he keeps betting against Ting to winning, and then his like the little happy guy next to him keeps getting happy
Yeah, that
that
was one of the highlights as well.
yeah, that Ting keeps winning, especially that first fight when he like just instantly knocks the guy out, and he's like, "What?" And then he like the baddie definitely forms a grudge immediately against Ting and wants to do him no good.
And I think also you have some, there's two side characters. I with Ting was also, they're
Mm-hmm.
kind of comedic as well during the, especially his I suppose his cousin. I think his name was Humley, I think it was something like
Yeah,
that.
and he's a
And
little bigger and goofier, and there's a girl side character as well.
when he was in the chase sequence, he was trying to do the same things as Ting was doing, trying to jump over
Yeah.
stuff. He just I think one of the highlights there was like the silver metal thing, and obviously
Mm-hmm.
Ting got in quite perfectly, and he just got his head stuck in some massive can,
Yep.
and
It
or
just happened to come out right for him. Yeah, some
and when
good
he has
comedic effect there.
when he gets a knife and he's surrounded by the guys, obviously the bad guys are scared, but then there's this random woman selling random knives, and he just runs for it.
Oh right, yeah. There is some really good comic, almost like Looney Tunes style moments where like something happens and then he just kind of runs off, and yeah, there's some really good comedic timing in this.
It doesn't take itself that overly seriously, which I like as well.
But
And
there are some stakes because like
yeah,
watching
especially at
it
the end.
back with watching it back through, you do cut back to the village at one point and see that like because they're missing their Buddha head, like they're suffering this like severe drought or whatever. So he's definitely is fighting for a purpose to get this sacred artifact back.
Might sound weird, but it kind of reminded me of Temple of Doom a little bit. Like the plot, like they had to get the
Sure.
stones back, or otherwise the village will like rotting away.
Yeah, I can see
So it was
that.
kind of it was kind of like that in a way. Obviously not as crazy as Temple of Doom, people getting their hearts ripped out,
Yeah,
um, which is
kid
my favorite.
slaves, all that
Which is
wildness.
my favorite Indiana Jones movie though.
Okay.
um, and yeah, it was. It's not like a deep character movie. If people go into this film, you're not expecting deep characters or anything like that. It's just like a movie that does have like our main character does like want to get this head back and just not cause much trouble really, and
It's
that's
really
really it. And
about, yeah, awesome stunts, awesome fights, and seeing some elbows to the head, and you definitely get that.
I think my favorite scene, not just the town one, but in that circle where he has to face those three guys. I think it was like the second one. He was kind of massive as well. Um, he had this random middle finger at you, and then and
Are you talking about the one that was going at him with the chairs and stuff?
no, he had like this crazy mohawk, curly hair with a
Okay.
not
Oh
that
yeah, long curly hair. I remember that one.
yeah. He was a bit nuts. But another one you're talking about, the one who kept throwing tables and chairs constantly.
Yeah, and that fight
Um,
ends with him like them flying out of this window and him landing on him, and he finally wins over the crowd. Which it's kind of weird that he just then won over the crowd, but I mean that was a cool moment, because I think they're like throwing coins at him or something.
yeah, Ting must have some really strong bones in him because he's getting smacked really hard with these chairs constantly over and over again. There is this weird one where he keeps throwing plates and he's just punched them back constantly. I think it was like 3 times. Um,
One of the fights I liked is the guy kind of with the poofy hair, and his like style was like really fast footwork or whatever. But yeah,
mhm.
Ting kind of put him in his place with his elbow to the head. All right. Yeah, so they finally tracked down the asshole with the who stole the statue, and oh yeah, that's the scene where like he's with a girl in his like apartment, and like he like shoves a bunch of drugs in her face, and she starts
Oh yeah,
ODing, and that
that
was
was
pretty
rough.
nuts. And that leads to a
Yeah.
great chase sequence. Oh, did you want to say something else about that?
No, yeah, it reminded me of like Pulp Fiction. When she's those types of stuff is really horrible to see. Obviously.
Yeah, especially
Um,
against her will, having being OD'd like that. It's pretty nuts.
yeah, it was crazy.
But yeah, that leads to a really good chase scene where they're in those little three-wheeled buggies, and man, those things are
Yeah.
going like all over the place, flipping over. There's one part where one like flips all the way up in the air, and there's this huge explosion. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it's still fun. It almost like reminded me of Speed in the middle of it, where they're on that like overpass
Yeah.
that runs out. But yeah, it's all for a purpose, because like at the very end, they crash into the water, and then they see that there's this whole huge conspiracy about like stealing Buddha heads from all over the country. I guess to I don't know how. I'm not sure if they were. I guess they were probably selling them on the black market or something and getting quite a bit of money out of it. So that whole scheme So definitely get a bit of Thai culture here with seeing how important the Buddha is to them.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it was just how willing he was, to go out there and get it. And I feel like, yeah, like you mentioned with the villain, he was definitely obviously he was like in a wheelchair and he couldn't really do much. He obviously had a like those electric voice box, because I think, I don't know, they
Yep.
show a little bit of a quick image of his where he's been smoking.
Yeah, he
Um,
smokes through his the hole in his throat, and that just he
that's
doesn't.
nasty.
Somebody that does that just does not give a shit about anything. Goodness. Kind of a bizarre. I guess the weakest part of the movie is kind of the third act slump where like they force Ting, I guess, to throw a match against that one guy who like pumps up on a bunch of adrenaline, I guess it was, and
Yeah,
it's kind of an iconic moment because Ting's like wrapping his arms up with the ropes and stuff. I think that's what's on the cover. What I didn't really get was like, so they were talking about him throwing this fight, but at the same time, like the guy, I felt the need to get all drugged up. Maybe he didn't know it was being thrown. I don't know.
yeah, it was a bit of a not much of a great third act really. It felt not anticlimactic, just not as great as the first or second half of the film. But it was kind of neat to see the massive head fall on him. So
Oh yeah, yeah. At the end, whenever he fights him again there in the little temple or whatever, in
they
that
show that
gate.
twice.
Oh yeah, they do. I do remember that part. I really enjoy whenever they're fighting. So after the rig or the fixed fight, he goes to go retrieve the head, and the baddie's still not giving it to him, and so they leave them there to get killed by his men as they go off to like the temple or whatever. And I really enjoyed the scene where Ting nails that guy with the biker helmet on, and I think it like splits the helmet in half,
Yeah.
which was pretty great. Yep, a lot of good Oh, and another moment that stood out to me was how Ting, like, he can do all this badass fighting, but like he couldn't start the motorcycle, so he had
No.
to hand that over to his cousin to get that started for him. So he can't do everything, but he can do most things. But yep, definitely had some help from his friends.
No, for some reason that his special move, his elbow, seems really iconic. I don't know why. It was just
I think
it's
it's so
like
different. It's just you don't typically see that, but it's like obviously like effective.
it's like a Jonathan Van Damme's special spin kick, like you see in
Oh
Hard
yeah.
Target or Bloodsport. Um, but yeah, it's just something about that elbow just seems very brutal, even though these guys are handling it pretty well. Um,
Yeah,
Obviously,
they
it's moves
bounced back
like
surprisingly well, but I suppose if he knocked everybody out on the first hit, I mean, you wouldn't have much of a movie.
no, not really, no. And I've never seen. I wonder what the sequels would be like. I don't know if they go bigger and bigger, like most sequels do.
I would say so, but yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, the climax is pretty awesome as everything just kind of accumulates into all those platforms crashing everywhere. His cousin gets injured in the process, but really hooks him up too. And yep, they of course win and save the village in typical movie fashion. But yeah, definitely a nonstop thrill ride. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, subtitles aren't bad at all in this one. Great
I don't
comedy.
see nothing wrong with subtitles and movies in general for me, anyway.
Right. Yeah, I think it's more of an American thing. Some people get hung up on them. Like I'm kind of a slow reader, so sometimes I get annoyed whenever the subtitles are coming up like really really fast and I'm having to keep like backing up a little bit in order to read all of it. So but I definitely didn't find that was the case at all with this. It was pretty easy to digest just for, people who watch movies and are more sensitive to that. So
No, but there's not many movies nowadays with subtitles anyway, which is a shame because nothing wrong with foreign language or black and white films in general. Nothing, not every movie has to be like a blockbuster, Fast and Furious or an MCU film, really.
yeah.
So
And shoot, sometimes I find myself watching like artsy films from the UK, like Kess and Ratcatcher, and I'm finding myself putting on the subtitle just because I know I'd get more out of the dialogue just because of those accents are so thick.
yeah, well, like you mean like UK films, like let's say like a Guy Ritchie film, you like
A
those
little
types
bit,
of films. Yeah,
not as much, I would say. Usually, I Well, I mean, obviously, like Brad Pitt and Snatch, it's just like, huh? But I mean, that's kind of the point. So,
Funny
yeah.
thing, I can understand him in Snatch. A lot of people can't for some reason.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've seen it enough to where I get the gist of what he's saying, but yeah, it'd be interesting if I could do a full translation. But yep, highly would recommend Ong-Bak. I would probably give this
Yeah,
one four
definitely.
stars. How did you rate this one?
I gave it 4 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. So yeah, pretty much the same.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me on this first episode of
No, thanks for
I've always
inviting me.
wanted to
I
watch
hopefully
this.
like to do it again sometime.
Yeah, I'll have to have you on again, maybe on a main episode of the Average Joe's Movie Club cast. A little tricky since you're 5 hours ahead of me, but yeah,
Yeah,
we finally
I'll
made it
find some
work.
time.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Now, how do people find you on the interwebs? You're on Twitter and
Okay,
Letterboxd.
yeah, there's Twitter and my Letterbox. So if you want to find me on Letterbox, it'll be Marvin 123.
Hmm.
And for Twitter, it will my Twitter link will be on Letterbox. But if you don't have Letterbox, then just follow me on Twitter at Marvin K Brown 1.
You have your
So
own YouTube channel as well, right?
oh yeah, my YouTube channel as well. Yeah, that as well. But I haven't made a video for 2 months now, not since the Snyder Cut. But just type
Okay.
in Marvin's channel and you'll find me on there.
Very cool. And of course, you can find me on the Average Joe's Movie Club cast YouTube page, and we're on Buzzsprout, and pretty much trying to write daily on Letterboxd. So, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Have a great day, everyone, and keep watching movies.
Yep. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you, Justin, again.